Welcome everyone. Today we're continuing with inequalities. Excuse me. But today we're solving multi-step inequalities instead of just one step. So multi-step means anything from 2 to however many you want. It could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 100. But I promise we won't get into 100-step problems. So the first thing we have to do is solve this inequality. Now we have 3x minus 7 is less than 8. Now, if it makes it easier, just think of this symbol as an equal sign. We're going to solve this for x the same way we would solve any equation. So the first thing we got to do is try to get x by itself. So I'm going to get rid of the thing that's not touching my x by adding 7. I add because this is a minus, the opposite is plus. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. And we get 3x. Now we could still use our equal sign if we wanted to, as long as we switch it back to our symbol at the end. 8 plus 7 is 15. Divide by 3. We get x. Now remember to flip this back to our less than sign. X is less than 15 divided by 3, which is 5. So if we create our number line to graph it, the middle will be 5, 1 greater is 6, and 1 less is 4. Now this does not have a line underneath it, so we can draw an open circle. If we create an arrow through our symbol, it shows us which way the arrow is pointing. So we graph it to the left. X is less than 5, which means that x can be anything less than 5. Okay, our next problem, we have parentheses and a number outside of those parentheses. So what we have to do is distribute. So we distribute this negative 0.6. So I'm multiplying negative 0.6 by x and by negative 5. We get a negative 0.6x. Now two negatives are going to make a positive. 0.6 times 5 gives me 3. Is less than or equal to 15. Okay, so now we have to subtract 3. And we get negative 0.6 x is less than or equal to 12. Finally, we have to divide by negative 0.6. So we get x. Now we divided by a negative number. And our rule is whenever we divide or multiply by a negative number, we have to take our sign or our symbol and flip it. So 12 divided by negative 0.6 gives us a negative 20. So x is now greater than or equal to negative 20. So negative 20 is going to go in the middle here. Then negative 19 is 1 greater. Negative 21 is 1 less. Our arrow is pointing to the right. It's a closed circle because of the equal to sign. And it's pointing to the right. So x can be anything greater than or equal to negative 20. Alright, so again we have to solve this inequality. Now if we just take a look at this, I see that I have an a here and an a here. Now this is just like if we're solving an equation. We can't have a variable on both sides. We need to move one over. I'm going to move the 4a over so I get all my variables on the left side where there should be. So we have 10 minus 7a is greater than negative 4. Got to subtract 10. Ten minus 10 is 0, so those cancel. We get negative 7a is greater than negative 4 minus 10 is negative 14. Last step, divide. So we have a. We divided by a negative number, so we have to flip our sign. So we have a is less than negative 14 divided by negative 7, which is a positive 2. Again, if we graph that, we would have 2 in the middle, 3 is 1 greater, 1 is 1 less. Open circle, pointing to the left. Alright, now again we have two variables, so we got to move one over. I'm trying to get all my variables on the left side, so I'm going to move the 2x by subtracting it. 6x minus 2x gives me 4x minus 7 is greater than 17. Got to move this 7, so we're going to add 7. So we get 4x is greater than 24. Finally, divide by 4. So we get x is greater than 6. So 6, 1 greater is 7, 1 less is 5. We have an open circle at 6, pointing to the right. Now we're going to talk about 3 different possible solutions to these inequalities. So the 3 possible solutions are one solution, where it's just x, our variable, is less than or greater than one single number. This is one solution. Now, if this is true, so our second solution is 5 is greater than 2. If that is true, then our second solution is all real numbers. Our symbol for all real numbers is like an R with an I through the middle. So all real numbers, if this is true, 5 is greater than 2, is all real numbers. If it's false, 2 is greater than 5, well, we know that 2 isn't greater than 5 because it's smaller than 5. If it's false, there is no solution. So this problem would not work. This is impossible to do. So we have one solution, all real numbers, if it's true, and if it's false, no solution. So let's try and see if we can figure out if these are true or not. So we have 14x plus 5. I can't do anything on this side, so I gotta look at my other side. This side would have a parentheses with a number in front, so I know I can distribute the 7. So we get 14x plus 5 is less than 14x minus 21. So we need to move our variables now because we have 2 of them. So I'm going to subtract 14x from this side so I can get my x's over here. 14x minus 14x is 0, so those are gone. 14x minus 14x is 0, so those are gone. What we're left with is 5, a less than symbol, and a negative 21. Now if this is true, it's all solutions, or all real numbers. If it's false, it's no solution. So what I have is 5 is less than negative 21. Well, I know that negative 21 is smaller, so this is false. We have no solution. The graph of that equation would be, or that inequality, would just be a number line. So 1, 2, 3, just a blank number line. There is no solution to this number line, so we don't have to graph it. The second problem, 12x minus 1, can't do anything on this side. We can distribute on this side though. So we have 12x minus 1 is greater than or equal to 12x minus 6. Again, we have a variable on both sides, so we can't have that. So I'm going to subtract 12x to get it over to the left side. That's 0. That's 0. What I'm left with is negative 1 is greater than or equal to negative 6. Now I know that negative 1 is closer to 0, so negative 1 is greater than negative 6. So what we have then, if this is true, is all real numbers. This is everything that we could put into for x would work. Any number that we wanted to. The graph of all real numbers has lines going either way. So if I were to graph that, I would have numbers and all of my numbers would work. So I'm just going to put negative 1 and I'll just put negative 1 here and negative 6 here because those are the numbers that we found. All real numbers would work. Oh, now if we look at this problem, we have a lot of numbers and a lot of different letters, and it looks just like a lot of different things going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover up one side of my problem so I can just deal with one side at a time. So the side that I'm going to deal with here is 4m plus 14 equals negative 2m. I see that we have two different variables, or two of the same variables. So I know that I can take those and I can combine them. Now if I do 4m minus 2m, 4 minus 2 gives me 2m plus 14 is less than or equal to. Now I need to go to my other side. So I'm going to cover this side while I deal with what's over here. So I'm going to distribute the 2. So I get 2m plus 14. So if I do this problem, we have to move the m's over to one side. Two m minus 2m gives me 0, so I have 14 is less than or equal to 14. Now is this true? 14 is less than or equal to 14. Well, 14 is not less than 14, but 14 is equal to 14. That means our solution is all real numbers. Alright, now we are going to write and solve an inequality to find the possible values of x when we're dealing with area. So what we're given is a triangle. Now the area of a triangle is A equals base times height divided by 2. So what we need to figure out is how we can put this into an inequality. We're going to use the numbers that we have and our what we're given. So it says the area is less than or equal to 100 centimeters squared. So our area is our base, which is down here, x minus 2, times our height, which is here, which is 10, divided by 2, is less than or equal to 100 centimeters squared. So what I see first is I see that I have something on the top here and I have a division problem, divided by 2. So I'm going to multiply by 2 to get rid of that 2. When we multiply on one side, we have to multiply on the other. So we get x minus 2 times 10 is less than or equal to 200 centimeters squared. Now, since I have just this, I can distribute the 10. Doesn't matter that it's behind our problem. I can still distribute it. So we get 10x minus 20 is less than or equal to 200. Add 20 to both sides. Oh, 200 plus 20, that's actually 220. Didn't mean to cross that out. So we have 10x is less than or equal to 220. Divide by 10. And x is less than or equal to 22. So that means that anything I put in for x right here has to be less than or equal to 22. If I have anything greater than 22, it won't work. Here we have a square, or a rectangle. We're trying to find the area is greater than 100 feet. So the area of a rectangle is base times height. So our base here is x plus 3. Our height is 4, which is greater than 100 feet. So I'm going to distribute the 4. We get 4x plus 12 is greater than 100. Subtract 12. So we have 4x is greater than 100 minus 12, which is 88. Divide by 4. And x equals, not equals, sorry. X is greater than 88 divided by 4, which is 22. So that means that x in this problem on our base could be anything that is greater than 22, and it would work. Alright, that is it for today. Your homework is 6.3 worksheet, and I only want you to do the odds on this one. So do the odds.